So what the heck is a sweat lodge? Do you just go in a lodge and sweat? Do you sweat till you pass out? Do you smoke a pipe? What if someone farts in the lodge? Do you sing Kumbaya? What is a sweat lodge? Well, if you've ever asked yourself any of those questions, today's your lucky day. Because today, I'm going to share my experience and knowledge on the sweat lodge. And to start, it's extremely important to note that I am no master at the sweat lodge. I have no teaching on this subject. I am simply a guy who's done a couple of sweat lodges and has decided to share my experience on them. So first, where did the sweat lodge come from? Sweat lodges are actually in cultures all over. You can find different forms of sweat lodge in the Greeks, in the Mayans, in the Finns, in the Swedish, and the Germans. And most commonly, when you hear about sweat lodge, it's talked about with the Native Americans. So the sweats that I have attended have been facilitated by a man named George, who's actually a Quaker, but he was trained by Native Americans. And the best thing to do now so that you get an idea about what the sweat lodge is to just jump into my experience of it. So I arrived at the location around 3 p.m. with the understanding that I'd probably be there pretty late, till about 10 p.m. From there, we did some introductions with the guys and the gals that were all there. After that, we began to split up some responsibilities. The ceremonies that I've been at, the lodge was already built, so there's nothing in this video about how to build a lodge. So when we arrived, we had two main responsibilities, and they were cleaning out the lodge, making sure that there was no leaves in there, making sure that there was no water in the pit, and the other big responsibility was to collect wood for the fire that we were going to build. And so when I arrived, I began cleaning out the lodge because there was a bunch of water in the pit where the stones go. After that, I began helping collect firewood. And so one of the most important steps for this successful lodge is to build a fire. So the idea is to build a fire, and then we're going to bring the stones into the fire. We're going to heat up these stones in the fire for several hours. Then we bring the stones that are scalding hot into a pit in the lodge. And then we pour water on these stones, and the combination of the water, the fire, and the heated stones brings about the steam. And the steam, in the Native American tradition, is called the Great Spirit, or the grandfather's breath. And the idea here is that we're taking all four elements, putting them together, and we're breathing in the product. We're breathing in that creator spirit, because we're taking fire, we're heating up these stones, right? We're putting them into the earth, and we're pouring water on them. So earth, wind, fire, water, we're combining all of these, and then we get the steam, and we breathe it in. And so as we were building this fire, I started to really get into this sense of unity. I realized that we all showed up there as strangers. We were all focusing on one task. We were focusing on getting this fire built with the result of getting into this lodge together and for healing. And when you bring people together like that with similar intentions, you can really feel the power in it. You can really feel the energy in that. And so once the fire's built and it's roaring up, at that point the facilitator sat us all down and shared a little bit of history about the lodge, a little bit of his experience and his training. Went on to share some suggestions and even shared a couple of funny stories with us. And so George started to fill us in on some of his knowledge and some of his training, and he talked about things like the significance of the number 4 and how it's the 4 directions: north, south, east, west. Also talked about the 4 main elements: the fire, wind, water, earth. Got into the significance of circles and how there are circles everywhere. All night we were making circles. We were sitting in circles. Trees are circles, the earth, the sun, the moon. And he started to talk about sage and how the Native Americans believed that sage was the first medicine. All night long we were burning sage. And in the lodge we had sweetgrass. And so sage is believed to sort of expel these negative energies and really cleanse and purify the air. And then sweetgrass brings on in the positive. And one of the things that George mentioned here that really stuck with me was this term mitakuasin, which means to all my relations, which ultimately means that we're all connected. And it's really easy to forget that we're all humans, that we all came from the womb. connected to one another and to everything all around us. And with that, it's a good time to reiterate there are so many subjects within this that I'm not talking about. This is just a short video sharing my experience, so I'm not talking about how to build a lodge. I'm not talking about safety for a sweat lodge. I'm not talking about the peace pipe. There are lots of different factors that go into this that I'm not trained in and that I don't know about. So once again, I'm just here sharing my experience. So if you're thinking about doing a lodge, you want to learn more about it, there's tons of literature, and I'm sure there's tons of other YouTube videos as well. And so once the stones were hot enough, the sweating began. So we all get in a circle in the sweat lodge, and the facilitator has the doorman bring in the stones, and we put them in the middle of the lodge. They're scalding hot, and then there's water poured on them, and we begin to sweat. And so we did 4 rounds. I'm sure that might be a common thing. Other cultures might do more than that. Our rounds, we did 4 rounds. Each round was, I think, about 10 to 15 minutes, and I'm sure that can vary quite a bit as well. At this point, in my opinion, it's really, really important to have a good facilitator that is able to kind of feel the energy and to keep it safe and to know how long the rounds are. Like they should be able to sense if somebody's just not okay, or if the group as a whole is really having a hard time, then they might cut the rounds a little bit shorter. So in the lodges that I did, the rounds consisted of different things. Like the first round we went in there and we all did some singing as a group. The second round we did some praying and some personal prayers. The third round we did some things that we wanted to release or let go of. And then the last round we did some more singing. One of the number one things people ask me with the lodge is, was it painful? Was it hard? And my answer is mostly no. But by round 4, I was starting to get a little headachy and I was starting to feel a little dehydrated. So there is a good tip to make sure that you hydrate because you're sweating. I mean, picture going into a sauna or even being outside in like a 100-degree day and you're doing 4 rounds of that. It can be a lot, and you're crunched up next to people as well. And so mostly not hard, but then again, you typically, if you're going for something like that, for some healing or for some growth, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. So you can also expect that, and I also have tons of faith that you'll be able to get through it. So when you step into the sweat lodge, the lodge is covered in blankets. So when you step into it, it's pitch black. It's pitch black, and it's wet, and it's hot. So you might be thinking, it sounds just like a mother's womb. And so that's a big part of the symbolizing in the sweat lodge is that it's like a mother's womb. And so it's a time to go in there and to release, to sweat, to let out the toxins, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual toxins, to release and let go of it. Then of course there's a chance to step out back into the world and to be reborn. In lodge fashion, I'm going to wrap this up with a song that I learned at my sweat lodge. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Now I walk in beauty, beauty is before me, beauty is behind me, above and below me. Now I walk in beauty, beauty is before me, beauty is behind me, above and below me. Now I walk in beauty, beauty is before me, beauty is behind me, above and below me. Now I walk in beauty, beauty is before me, beauty is behind me, above